Greetings to all who are following the service today. During the week at our Zoom prayer meeting on Wednesday, Lyle Hutchinson joined us. Lyle has been one of the missionaries that this church has supported for many years. He works at Canberra for Youth with a Mission. Youth with a Mission is a mission that has been for many years training particularly young people for ministry and mission, training them on how to be better followers of Jesus. Lyle shared with us of how the mission base at Canberra in the suburb of Watson got involved in the Floriade Festival. So the Floriade Festival is an annual festival at Canberra, which happens at springtime. I guess it's a little bit like the Bacchus Marsh Strawberry and Cherry Festival that would have happened practically, well, actually last weekend, if COVID wasn't on. And the Floriade Festival, which is a huge display of flowers of spring, wasn't able to happen in the normal way. So they decided to kind of run it at many locations in Canberra. So YWAM decided to be one of those, elected to be one of those locations, and had it at their community garden, which I wasn't even aware that they had one. So over 2 weekends, or over 2 days anyway, and I think this was towards the end of September, people were invited to come along and share in this beautiful display of flowers in spring, tulips and poppies and all sorts of other flowers that I couldn't name to you, and if I did, I'd probably embarrass myself because I'd get it wrong. But people came, and the first time they had 150 people from the community. The second time there were 300 people. They came with their families, they came with their kids. There were games held. There was lots of food. Everything was free. And the staff at YWAM at the base were able to mingle with the people that came. And Lyle spoke of it as being just a great success, a tremendous success. And one of the things that happened and that they were hearing from their neighbours was that people had wondered what this place was about. So there's a few acres in this great sort of compound, and there's a number of YWAM staff there. And people, commented on the fact that, well, it was a bit of a mystery what was going on there, and they were really glad to come and see what was there and who was there, and even connect with some of the staff. And equally, the YWAM staff were able to connect with their neighbours and were able to share a little bit about what YWAM was about and all that sort of thing. Really positive community feel, lots of goodwill, and so on. Now, the thing that struck me about that was that, and some of you who know Lyle are probably aware of this too, that for a number of years, Lyle has been sharing with me that YWAM has been making attempts to try and get more involved in their surrounding community, but I guess with different degrees of success. And then here was something which came out of the problems of COVID that arose, and a great opportunity, and they were able to extend this invitation to their own neighbours, and people came, and something good has started. So much so that on the Saturday yesterday, they had another kind of a Christmas fair where there was all sorts of like a car boot sales and so on. There's about 30 different sort of people who were stall holders, who were doing all sorts of things, selling things and so on. And it was going to be, once again, a gathering with people, with games, with food and so on. So here was an invitation that was well accepted by the community around them, the community of Watson. The story that I want to lead us into today is also about an invitation. And it's an invitation that Jesus gave to, it's a story about an invitation that a king gave to a wedding banquet for his son. Now, this comes from, the reading has been in your order of service from Matthew chapter 22. And we are going back to this, a story that Jesus gave, because we've been talking about, from about halfway through this year, about the centrality of Jesus. You know, we're coming into a Christmas season, and we will be, especially us Christians, will be thinking of Christmas in terms of Jesus. He is the central figure. And we've been saying, and I've been encouraging us to read a gospel this year and get acquainted with this person who we say is central to our faith. You know, remember that time when, you know, after the resurrection and Jesus was walking on the Emmaus Road with those two men that didn't recognize him. And Jesus, as he was talking to them, talked to them about himself and how all the scriptures related to him, connected to him. So everything else about the scriptures, you know, the Genesis, the creation accounts, the prophets, the wisdom books, and even the letters of Paul the apostle, they're all connected to Jesus. He, if you like, he is the key that unlocks all these other parts of the Bible. So Jesus told this story, and we know that he often talked in parables and different other ways of types of ways of speaking. And a parable is not necessarily a story that's factual, which illustrates the fact, and again, the Bible is rich in all sorts of different types of literature and ways of conveying truth. So, you know, we're very coloured in a Western society by a scientific world that deals with things that can be seen and tested. And we deal with facts, and we're so used to facts that we forget that for centuries all over the world, people have been also using different ways of communication, and truth can be communicated in ways that are not just about talking about facts. And the parables was such. So when we look at parables, even like this one, we don't look for everything in it to be realistic, to be exactly the way it has to be in real life. It's usually an illustration. And Jesus more or less says that here. And he says that this parable is about kingdom, the kingdom of God. Now, it's about an invitation given by a king. I don't know how many invitations that you've had that stand out in your mind because of something really special. I remember once that when I conducted a wedding for some people that, well, obviously I got to know the couple quite well leading up to it, but I didn't know these people very well. And Margaret and I were really surprised and honoured to be invited to the reception. And it happened to be at Werribee Mansion. which was pretty special. So we were really honoured by that. It was an invitation that we were glad, if not a little bit apprehensive about accepting. But in this story that Jesus told, the king sent his servants out to remind all the guests that had already been invited that everything was ready. The banquet was ready, and it was time to come. But when they went, the people who had been invited gave excuses. They said, we've got things to do, we've got work to do, we've got our fields to look after, and so on. And they didn't come. And the king was furious. And so he said to his servants, well, the feast is ready, everything is ready. Go out into the streets, go wherever you can, and invite people. Ask them to come to the wedding. And it does say in the story, invite the good and the bad. Invite everyone. Invite anyone to come. So they did that. And they came. And Jesus says that this was an illustration of the kingdom. He said the kingdom of God is like this. So what might that mean for us as we come in to this Christmas period? This is the season of Advent begins today, this Sunday. And as we look forward, perhaps even in a particularly special way to this Christmas time because of where we've been through these 9 months, where everyone's been through because of COVID, and now, particularly in Australia, all the easing of restrictions, there's an extra excitement about Christmas and looking forward to celebrating Christmas. And we would say that this is about Jesus. The focus of Christmas, and particularly from this parable, is that Christmas is for everyone. God's salvation, the kingdom of God, is for everyone. And, reading back in the other stories that preceded this story that Jesus told, it's pretty obvious that Jesus is having this, he's been challenged by the religious authorities. And a lot of the things that he says, including in this parable, is that God's salvation, God's good news is for everyone, but it starts with his people. But the point is that his people, the invited guests, the ones that the servants went to first, rejected him. They rejected the message. And so God says that his message frees up his message for everyone, for the Gentiles. And that is the message of the kingdom of God. That is the other people, the ones on the streets, the good and the bad. God's message is for all. Christmas is for all. So let's think about what does that mean, and we'll finish with this. What does that mean for us? Who is our all? Who are the people for us on the highways and the byways? Who are the people on the street? And I'm not even thinking literally of the people on the street, but it might be those people, definitely, certainly, partly includes those people. But who are they? Well, they're the poor and the unresourced people. They're the orphans and the widows. And, we are very aware that this is happening here. We are very aware of the needs all around us, here in Bacchus Marsh, here in Victoria, and in other parts of Australia. But in the last few weeks, even as we were doing the previous series, we talked about, especially in one of the weeks, we had a whole list of links, and I've re-included them today in the service. Links to Christian charities like, Baptist World Aid and others, and Cheer Fund, and Susan Corr spoke to us about a charity called the Ian Richards Foundation, and we interviewed her about that a few weeks ago, that support orphans in Burma, in Myanmar. So many places of need in the world, so many people who don't even get a chance to consider about things like we think about at Christmas, like great feast and presents and all that sort of thing, because they're still trying to get the basic things done, and these links, if you follow them, any of these charities, tells us about ways, yes, that we can give money, but ways in which we can kind of be involved with communities, and even with helping some of these people to help themselves. So not only provide for their daily needs, for their food and all that sort of thing, daily things that are absolute necessities, but also giving them a chance to work, to earn their own living, helping them to help themselves. All sorts of opportunities. And I couldn't help thinking as I was reading about this story that Jesus told, that this is so relevant for us, isn't it? Yes, we've been struggling with COVID. Yes, it's been difficult. But we've also been led to look at our world again, haven't we? It's such a global problem. And as we've done that, we've been again reminded that this is a very needy world. And so I would like to encourage us that even as we consider our own celebrations at Christmas, that we consider the world around us and ways that we can contribute to the needs of this very needy world. But there are things closer to home for us. As we ask about who are people out on the streets that God is asking us to share his invitation with. And I immediately think about people, it's great that the op shop has begun these last few weeks, and it's been great to be part of some of the running of the op shop and welcome all these clients. I can't help noticing when I've been there what a feeling of goodwill there is when customers come in and they're so sort of happy to come to a place. There's tremendous kind of great connection between the op shop volunteers and the customers and so on. It's been really great. But some of the people that are the volunteers of our op shop are those who still don't really know about the Jesus that we celebrate at Christmas. Well, how can we perhaps involve them, include them in our Christmas? How can we bring the message, the good news of God's kingdom closer to them this Christmas? What about our neighbours? What about the people who we just find ourselves, rubbing shoulders with, whether it's at work or whether through other means, whether it's other parents from school or whatever it is? What about, and this often does happen at Christmas time, what about family members that we probably don't have a lot to do with, probably because we don't kind of have a lot in common with them? But what about them? What are ways that we can bring this good news message a bit closer to them? Ways that we can share this message with some of these people. God's invitation is for all of us. So who are you? Who am I going to share his invitation with this Christmas?